Good morning, Warren. So this is going to be part of a video series that I do, where I'm just talking about tackling different aspects of school. I think it's important as an administrator to be transparent and honest about these things, so people understand who you are as an educator, what direction you're trying to lead the school, etc., etc. Um, this video in particular is going to be on what I feel the purpose of school is. Which has definitely morphed and shifted over time, and it is very different from what I was told as a kid. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So I'll start there. As a kid, I think many of us had this experience where we were told that school is how you guarantee financial security for your life. And the way you do that is by basically getting the best grades possible in classes. And that school will prepare you for the quote unquote real world. And it does that through academics and grades. And as a kid, I bought hook, line, and sinker into that because every adult I knew told me that it was super important for me to get straight A's and everything. And of course, school also reinforced this idea when I was a kid that you need to get everything correct the first time around. And if you don't learn it and understand it the first time around, then that is your fault. You did something wrong. You didn't study hard enough. You did not pay close enough attention, etc. And so that naturally, created a lot of stress and anxiety in me. Because like I said, I bought hook, line, and sinker, like full bore into this. So I obsessed about my grades. If I got a 99 on a test, I was at that teacher's desk arguing for that 1 point. It was not healthy. The idea of failure to me became very scary. I was not okay with failing. And as you'll see in other videos, failure is a critical part of the learning process. So I stunted a lot of my growth socially because of that fear of failure. I was not so afraid academically because I was really good at memorizing things. And so I had a lot of confidence, but it was that was what I walked away with. This is what school does, and I believed it until I got out of school, right? So I went to college, got my degree, realized that I was, at that point, my wife and I, we were crippled in student loan debt, and the money we were making doing what we did was not enough to pay for those bills, especially when we ended up having a kid. That just complicated everything even further. So I was for years was just like, what the heck is the purpose of school? Like I did everything I was told I was supposed to do. And I was not secure financially. I was actually in a worse spot than many of my friends who didn't go to college because of all that student loan debt. And then I looked at like the result of what school did for me or did to me, right? So like because of the pressure and the emphasis on what school was when I was a kid, yes, I got straight A's. Yes, I was top of my class. Yes, I was able. I got lots of scholarships. Still ended up with a bunch of debt. And with all of that, I did not gain financial security. I did gain an anxiety disorder. I did gain depression. I did gain a lack of confidence. Those are the things that I did walk away with. And so then I started asking myself, why? Why did I end up like that? And what role did school play in it? School played a role in it. Was it the sole cause of it? No, but it definitely played a role in it. With all the messages that were sent my way, that I don't believe were intentional, but they were still sent my way. I believe they were well-intended practices, messages, policies that ultimately ended up hurting me. And so, as an administrator and as I've gone on as an educator over time, I've really been grappling with what is the purpose of school if it's not to become the smartest academia scholar that you can be. And so I started asking myself, okay, well, schools all say that we want kids to be successful and productive citizens, which makes my eyes roll a little bit. Because what does that mean? And is productivity and success really what we want to use as our barometer for whether or not we've done a good job? I think if you talk to most adults, a lot, at least for a portion of their adult career, if not a majority of it, they don't necessarily feel successful. They don't necessarily feel productive in what they're doing. A lot of them don't even know, they'll be 30, 40 years old and still don't know what they want to do with their life. I think there are many reasons why we end up in that boat, and I think part of that is the way school has been structured. School was developed about 100 years ago, public schooling, and it was developed it laid a foundation for education that just isn't appropriate anymore. It took a factory belt mindset to education. And it was like, we're going to treat these kids like they're all parts on a factory belt. We're just going to piece them together. In kindergarten, we assemble this part. In first grade, we assemble these pieces. In second grade, we assemble those pieces. And by the end of their schooling career, they'll all be these perfectly assembled little robots that all look and act and talk and are the same. And that's, the furthest thing from reality, right? Like, there's all this, talk about how kids need to meet grade level standards. Yet it's common knowledge that the average American has a 7th or 8th grade reading level according to these standards. Yet your average American is working a job and raising a family and living a life, and overall they're doing okay. So it begs the question of why are we forcing kids to these arbitrary standards, and putting so much pressure on them to meet these standards when the vast majority of adults couldn't meet those standards. And it's just not realistic. It's not a human approach. People are vastly different, right? The skill set it takes to be a plumber or an architect or a doctor or a teacher or an engineer or an electrician or a custodian or whatever. They're vastly different skill sets and personalities that are required. We don't need to be masters of everything. We don't all need to be masters of literacy, math, science, history, etc. And there are also things outside of academics that are super important. So then the question comes down to, what do I think the purpose of education is if it's not to create academic scholars? So to me, as educators, what's truly important, first of all, is that our goal is not to create productive, happy citizens. It's to create kids who will grow up into adults that will find a way to be happy and satisfied with their lives as adults. The last thing we want for our kids is for them to be successful but miserable, right? And there's a video I watched a few years ago I think framed it perfectly. And it is, if we create happy, healthy, confident children, they will naturally go on to be successful, right? When people struggle with success, it's because they are miserable. It's because they are unhappy. It's because they fear failure, right? They're so afraid of failure. They're so critical of themselves that they almost paralyze themselves, right? They work against themselves actively. We want kids, if you are a happy, healthy, confident person, you're willing to take risks. You are willing to explore what are my passions, what are my strengths. You're willing to work on things that you struggle with. You have more resilience and perseverance. You have better work ethic, right? If we can help kids figure out what they love, what they're good at, what they're great at, what they're passionate about, if we can help kids feel comfortable in their own skin, if we can help kids feel confident, if we can help embrace and foster a child's curiosity, right, which implies it implies that the student is not afraid of failure. It's not that they have no anxiety around failure, that they're okay with it. They're willing to ask questions. They're willing to explore the answers to those questions. They're open to multiple possible outcomes. We can help kids in that way, and we can work on these intangibles, these things that can't be as easily quantified. And I think this is part of the reason why school has moved in this direction of academics being the focus, is because our government and the politicians want to hold educators accountable. And how do you hold them accountable? Well, you have to have something that's quantifiable. Well, it's easy to quantify scores on a test for math, science, history, etc. So those are the things we're going to gravitate towards for accountability. When the reality is, what's truly important for our kids are things that can't be quantified. They're not things you can take a test for. We should be focused on our children's work ethic, their confidence, their attitude around failure, their curiosity, their social comfort, their coping skills. We just had this big discussion the other day about why music, art, PE, etc. are so important, why we need to give them more attention, because these are the things that people and kids will use down the road to engage in self-care, to help them cope with the realities of the world. And the frank reality is that there are a lot of people in this world that have been exposed to some pretty harsh realities that are not easy to cope with. And there are a lot of unhealthy coping skills in adults, let alone our kids, trying to navigate the world. The world, when you get rocked out of your bubble, can be a very dark and depressing place. And some of these kids have been rocked out of their bubble very early on in their lives and are very much aware of all the dark things that take place. And they don't know, and they struggle with, how do I deal with that? So I think one of the most important things we can do is help them develop healthy coping skills, develop healthy coping activities to engage in, things that help decompress you. Art, music, PE, these are all critical things for adults to help them manage the stressors of life. And we need to help kids find those things that help them de-stress and decompress and express themselves, because that's a huge thing too. How do we get kids comfortable and expressing themselves, but then also listening to and understanding other people? How can we get kids to have a disagreement on something without hating each other, right? And part of that is by creating happy, healthy people. If you are a healthy person, if you're a happy person, if you have a healthy sense of confidence, if you have a healthy approach to failure and curiosity, when you get into a disagreement with someone, it's not going to be the end of your world. It's not going to be like they're the devil and I'm amazing and I can't believe that they think this way. Like, you're going to be, the more you get, the more you understand and empathize with people, and the more you understand behavior and its purposes and where it comes from, the less upset you get with people for thinking differently than you, for doing things that you wouldn't necessarily do, because you're able to put yourself in their shoes, so to speak. So that's my kind of hope, is to create a school where when kids leave here, they have a healthy sense of confidence, a healthy curiosity, because I think a lot of times as adults we do tend to kill a child's curiosity, and we kill it way too early. I don't think it should ever be killed, actually, but we do. We don't help foster curiosity. I think we need to help develop work ethic in objective ways that work, right? Giving a kid 4 hours of homework every night is not developing work ethic. I'm sorry. I'll have a whole video on that. But that does not develop work ethic. We need to help kids build resilience, perseverance, coping skills, all those intangibles, all those values and characteristics that result in somebody who is able to navigate life and maintain a positive attitude about themselves. Somebody who's able to love themselves and, as such, able to love other people. Somebody who knows themselves. They know what they want. They know what they're passionate about. They know what they're interested in. And they are willing and able and confident enough to pursue it. I don't want these kids to walk away thinking life is all about test scores and who is smarter than whom. One of the stark realities as an adult, you realize that this concept that someone is smarter than someone else is ridiculous. There are all kinds of different types of intelligences, and that's huge to understand, because I may be really good at building houses, but it doesn't mean that I can go be a doctor. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be a mechanic. There are all kinds of different types of intelligences. I have my own intelligence, but I also need other people. I need a plumber. I need an electrician, because I am not those things. And that is not one of my intelligences. That's not one of those things that I have worked on or am great at. There are other things that I am good at. So I would like our kids to get to that point where they're comfortable acknowledging who they are, and then also being willing to ask for help and understanding that we all need each other. So a lot of intangibles there, a lot of things that can't be quantified. And I think that the best way to tackle this is by working towards building the most positive, supportive community possible. I think if our goal in everything we do and every decision we make is framed around that, is that we are building a community here. We are a community here, and a community is a group of people that support each other's growth and mental, emotional, social health. Then I think we will be on the right and better path. So that means that, if we have to sacrifice some academic time to take the kids out and allow them to explore the world and ask questions and work with their hands a little bit more and engage in some social activities, and then it is what it is. It's okay to not have as much of an emphasis on the academics. They're still important, but they're not the whole pie. And that's something we need to work on balancing. I think for too long, academics have been 90% of the pie, and we need to scale back on that. And that's kind of my goal. So, and what I feel the purpose of education is. So, love any feedback people have. So thank you for listening.